G'day one and all, welcome back to Bushka on Blitz. I'm your host for tonight and we'll be taking you through the ins and outs of this behemoth, the Russian KV4. Hell of a big tank, nasty little reputation as a side scraper and well deserved. You might have caught me out. I actually said that I wasn't going to be reviewing any more Russian tanks anytime soon. However, long story short, I came into a bit of cash by constantly doing reviews and grinding through tanks, and just didn't have anything to spend it on. I didn't want to go spending it on the new Leopard line, the German medium tank line. I've already got the E50M and the E50, and they're very similar. The guns are very similar to the Leopards, and I just don't want to repeat the process. So I splashed out and grabbed the KV4 and the ISU 152. Both have been very exciting machines. Now, before we go any further, I'm obviously Bushka on Blitz. If you want to follow me on Twitter, at Bushka on Blitz, I do put a bit of a preview up there as to what's going to be printed off the presses next. Also engage in a little bit of chat and commentary. Or as always, drop me a comment here on the channel or subscribe, send me an email, and finally, in-game or on the forums. The Asian portal of Blitz is where I play, and if you want to jump on the forums there and say g'day, it's a pretty lively discussion over there on the game discussion forums, the English-speaking section. So, back to the KV4. I sold this tank when I got the ST1. Now, if we have a look at Russian heavies, here we go. I grabbed the ST1 and sold this tank. I had about a 60% win rate in it. And since rebuying it, I have gone rocketing up the charts to a win rate of, let's have a look, 71%. This is an incredibly strong line. You can see the T150 there, 82 games, 76%. The KV3, the Tier 7 version of this tank, 78% over 138 games. And the KV4, 71% over 152 games. They're well above my normal stats. It bears repeating, well above where I normally play the game. And it's less to do with any great skill and more to do with knowing how to use this line of tanks. And you have to be able to side scrape. Let's get that out of the way early and often. This tank, indeed, the entire line from the T150 to the KV3 to the KV4 to the ST1 to the IS4 are all champion side scrapers. They have to be allowed to side scrape. If you don't side scrape and angle this tank, you will be penned repeatedly and you will do bog all in terms of helping your team. Now we're going to have a look at the gun. The performance of the gun is interesting. This gun that the KV4 runs, we will be having a look at the mobility or lack thereof, and we'll be having a look at the armor profile or wow. Like the armor profile is boom. It's as good as it's going to get. Now it's an interesting tank in that the DPM is not particularly strong. Your damage per minute is, I think, something in the range of high 1600s to very, very low 1700s. And it's more than that. It's that the actual derp of the gun is not that great. Now, it is a peek-a-boom tank. Much like the KV3 before it, or the IS6 or the IS3, they're tanks that rely on a big dose of alpha. When they come out, pop you, and then they go back into hiding so that they're not constantly receiving incoming damage. If you want a tank that can just flat out at Tier 8 do incredible damage, you want to have a look at something like this. The Jag Tiger Snowstorm 8.8. Now, people may laugh at me when I talk about this tank. It's a premium tank. It does nearly 2,700 damage per minute. If you allow this tank 20 seconds at you, you are going to get lit the hell up. Not so the case with this tank, the KV4, and I'll show you why it can struggle with the damage. The gun itself is actually pretty bloody solid for a rusky tank. It's got 0.38 dispersion. The gun before, the 122mm D25T, which you use on the KV3, has 0.46 dispersion. And you can see there's a theme through the 107mm ZIS, which is 0.45, the 122mm D25T, and the 122mm D25T, they're all 0.545 dispersion or above, with big aim times, and that makes it very difficult to use them in any kind of sniping or ranged role. The 107mm ZIS 24 0.38 dispersion is actually quite accurate for a Russian gun. It still suffers the high 3.4 second aim time, but what it does have going for it really is it's got decent pen numbers. Now, the Russian guns are notorious for having poor penetration numbers but really high damage. The BL9 on the IS-3 is quite different to most of the Russian guns up until that time. It's got decent penetration. It's got excellent penetration actually for a rusky gun, but it's not as good in terms of dispersion as this. Now, it does do about the same damage per minute. So you'd think damage per minute on the IS-3 seems fine. Like, the IS-3 doesn't seem to lack for damage, but the issue here is, and the way the game is played, particularly with side scraping, is you want to be able to minimize the amount of time you're in front of the camera, or in other words, you're visible to be hit by enemy guns. So you want all your damage to be front loaded so that when you come out and pop out, you can hit them for as much as possible and then come back in. You don't want to have to be coming out more often to actually fire your weapon. Now, you'll see the rate of fire on this gun is 5.41 rounds per minute. On your IS-3, the rate of fire is 4 rounds per minute, 4.37. So it's under around a minute slower to fire. And it has the same DPM. That's because your alpha on the IS-3 is 400 per round. You're going to absolutely smack them in the face. That's a good solid chunk of alpha at tier 8. It just goes to show how overpowered the KV4 is, because the KV4 uses that D25T, which has 400 alpha at tier 7. Now, it suffers penetration-wise. It only does 175mm of penetration. But both the IS-3 and the KV4, which are the tier 8 Russian heavies, have good solid penetration numbers on their top gun. 227 for us on the ZIS, and 225mm, on the BL9. So it does suffer a bit with the derp. It doesn't have that huge peekaboo, but it would be immensely overpowered if it had that. If it had 400 alpha hits, it would just be a joke at 0.38 dispersion. It's a lot more accurate than your normal Russian gun, and because of that, you suffer a little bit, I think, on that initial alpha damage. Your rate of fire is better, so you can come backwards and forwards and maybe put an extra round a minute in. It's not the gun that is going to stop you in this tank. It'd be lovely to have a higher DPM, but that's fine. It's not the nature of the beast. And if you're caught in the middle of the open field with this tank anyway, it won't be the DPM that nerfs you and hammers you, because you are so poor in terms of mobility that people will be getting around and you will never be able to get your gun anywhere near them anyway. And that's a lovely little segue, isn't it, into mobility. Let's have a look at the mobility of the tank. You really need this engine upgrade. The engine horsepower on your stock is 1,000 horsepower. Sounds tremendous. Unfortunately, you weigh 107 tons. So you're chunky like a monkey. The upgrade to 1,200 horsepower really does help that. Your speed limit is 30 kilometers an hour. It's not something you're going to approach terribly often. Your acceleration is somewhat like that of a snail, and your traverse speed is absolutely horrific. 17 degrees of traverse and 18 degrees of turret traverse. To put that in some form of perspective, we have a look at our old friend, the T95. It has 18 degrees of traverse. So you traverse at pretty much exactly the same pace as a T95 in this tank. And that bears repeating. The slowest traversing big mongrel tank destroyer that you can get, the T95, is going to traverse every bit as well as your KV4. Now, obviously, you're a degree under in traverse speed in that, but you do have a turret traverse. So you can angle your turret and the chassis of your tank in a different direction, which allows you to actually be far more flexible than a T95. But you get my point. Its mobility is not going to be what saves the day. So the gun's nothing to write home about. The mobility of the tank is nothing to write home about. So Bushka, why in the world has this tank done so well for you? And to find out why, we're going to have a look at Armour Inspector. Now here we have the KV4. Now very important to note, this is probably the single most defining feature of this tank. Well, it is the most defining feature of this tank. If we take away the tracks and the spaced armour there on the gun, it's very box-like. You can see it's very boxy, very, very flat on the sides. Very steep slope on that upper glacis. I mean, that is crazy. 150mm on the side. I believe the Tiger was 150. We just reviewed that, and that was very disappointing because 150mm sloped at 41 degrees isn't enough. 120mm sloped severely like that, however, is going to give you about 400mm of penetration, or required penetration to get through. So you're pretty much safe as houses. It's a funny thing. Slope is where it's at. You either want severe slopes like that on the front, or very, very flat slopes, or lack of slope like that on the side, because it allows you to actually angle it and create your own angles. 150mm there, plus your tracks on the side and the hubs above the tracks, creates in spots when you're angling areas that require 400mm of penetration and in excess of that, which is just absolutely bonkers on a tier 8 tank. And if you're not creating those kind of angles where people need to penetrate 400mm worth of armour, effective armour, then you are doing it wrong. We're going to have a look here at the armour penetration model. Now this is from the perspective of the BL9, the loaded for bear IS-3 gun, the tier 9 gun, excellent weapon, 225mm of average penetration. Even then using AP, you can see there's an awful lot of red on that tank. You could go through the front drive wheel, but even then, for the most part, it is not a guaranteed chance of pen. You're looking at nearly everywhere there being sub 50%, for the most part sub 40% as a penetration value, and you've got just in excess of 230, 300mm of penetration required on all the other parts of the tank there on the front lower glacis. On the sides here you can see massive amounts of penetration required. If you get it angled just so, off a, it's just going to bounce. Everything's going to bounce. Look at it. It's just an absolute beast. I mean, there's spots on this tank that you couldn't get through with an Exocet missile. The biggest weak point in the tank is actually the turret. It's much like an E100, whereas you just don't want your turret to be directly facing your enemy at all. You want to point it straight down the line of the tank here, and you want it, you see that shell flying in there from that angle. You want the turret itself to be pointing away from your enemy, slightly to the right or slightly to the left of where your enemy is, depending on which side they're on, while the tank is behind a building and you're side scraping out. And that creates in excess of 250mm of penetration required on the edge of that turret, and 300 plus if you're angling very severely against bigger tier opponents. So you can see there, even using APCR, the BL9 is still going to struggle to pen the size of this tank. You want to be side scraping in and out with this tank. You do not want to be caught in the open field, because you are just slow as molasses, and someone will get round and start pinging them in your date right there where you have the effective armour of 90mm and will get absolutely barreled. You're very heavy, you can ram well, but the problem is mass times velocity is basically where it's at for ramming. So your E50s and such will do 60 and ram 60 tons, you'll do 25 ramming 100 tons. And surprisingly, you're much better off ramming in an E50 or an E50M. You try and ram in this, they'll move out of the way, and next thing you know, there's a tank behind you and you're dusted. So let's have a look at some examples, guys. Let's go and have a look at the gameplay. We'll go back to the garage first, and I'll talk you all through it. And hopefully this one's going to be of some use, because I think this tank is an absolute powerhouse for its tier. Now just finally, before we go and have a look at the gameplay, I run on this tank a toolbox, because you will be trying to eat shots on those tracks. You'll be trying to draw people into firing into your tracks, and that will require you to repair them quickly, And I know it's been said before, but for those of you who haven't noticed, a 25% toolbox repair kit plus a maximised repairs in your perks will give you a nearly 50% reduction in the time it takes to rebuild your tracks. And especially for a tank like this, which struggles to traverse, you must have every ounce of traverse speed possible. Hence, I'm also running vents because you need to have all the traverse you can have. Reload, everything gets helped by vents, and rummer, because basically, who doesn't like 10% quicker load times? Ammunition, I carry a loadout, only 5 APCR. You'll never really get through much, and it's not pen that kills this tank. It's not the gun or the lack of it. It is getting stuck one out in positions where you don't have help or you are isolated and they're able to get around your flanks. I do carry a engine power boost, which might seem a bit odd for a tank like this, but with something this slow, getting to a spot is just so incredibly important. For instance, on Copperfield, getting up to the edge of the roadway on the top so you can side scrape off it. On Falls Creek, getting to the cap circle or getting near the cap circle really quickly. On mines, getting up the top so you can side scrape off rocks. And you're going to see side scraping in pretty much all those areas from me. It's really important to be able to get there. You run track repair kit and multi-purpose, which you'll use for your tracks as well. So you're really all about getting to a spot, side scraping, and repairing your bloody tracks ASAP. That's it, boys and girls. Steady on now. We're going to have a look at some gameplay. It's really one of my favourite tanks. I think it is the best tank in Tier 8. You heard it here first. For my money, this is the best tank in its tier. Anyway, onwards and upwards. First cab off the rank is Mines. Now, this is a map that's generally dominated by the guys that take the hill. Not always, but it does take a concerted effort or a team being really bad to lose it once a couple of mediums have claimed that hill spot there. And we take that into account with our positioning here. I love moving up on this map right to the first rock here. You'll see the steep angle here to bounce the shot from this T-34. Really tough angle for him to hit at. Got to go through the tracks and everything there. And once we're at this rock here, we are in such a strong spot. Anyone that wants to come over the top of that hill is going to have 300 plus millimeters of penetration to hit anywhere on our chassis. And we can literally just hide our weak spot on the front of our turret behind this rock whenever we need to move forward. Anyone that wants to shoot up the hill at the mediums has to turn their turret to the right and expose himself to us. And you can see I'm here with Aegon, and Aegon is making a killing on that whole premise. We're only a tank down at the moment, but I feel really, really confident that we're going to get this one done, because the tank that died YOLO'd a bit over the crest of the hill and became the focus of all those tanks down there. And this now becomes a war of attrition. And it's very much the case. Look, you can just see the bounces there. That KV4, he should know better. There's no way he's going to pen that. Whereas I can see the top of his little turret there quite comfortably, and I will eventually get one in there. And we command the field from here. Now there's another rock on the other side of this cap circle. If they had have been more cautious and more campy, I would have moved straight past this rock on the right hand side up to the other side of the cap circle. The only caveat to that is if they own the lighthouse on the right hand side of our tank as it is here, that spot can be quite exposed. But if you've got the lighthouse and you've got the hill to the left, you want to move forward onto that rock. And you're in the cap circle then too, which is creating enormous pressure on the enemy team. As you can see here, it just starts grinding you under. When you've got to get to a cap, it's on 72, you've got to push the pace, you've got to make something happen. And the guys with map control don't have to do anything. And this is one of my big issues with Falls Creek, where you get all the clowns who hang on the bridge. If all well and good if people want to go and play sniper wars, but what happens when the enemy team doesn't give a rat's and just goes to the cap circle? Well, now the whole onus is on you. You've got to force the issue, and you've got to do it and come from a direction they're expecting into guns that are ready for you. And I just don't like that. So there you go, very straightforward map, that one. Aegon, I think, topped the damage charts, doing very well on his T-34. Oh no, we did. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Now I've seen here, I've looked at the map, there is only one tier 8 on either side. Thus I am doing something that I don't normally do, which is push right up here early and hard. Now I know I may have to take a couple of the tracks or on the side of the turret to get it done, but we really need to get up here and kill this IS-3 ASAP, and that gives us then the title of big dog in the match, and no one really can pen us, which is what you want to be if you're a heavy tank. Now we're angling here, just making sure if he wants to go through, he's got to go through that front driveway. You can see him looking for a spot to penetrate our tank on. Look how long it takes him to have a hit. Finally gets a shot off. He's taken 2 rounds from other tanks in that time, and we've completely reloaded. It's such a good tank. It's so difficult to penetrate. And eventually he does get one through the lower glaciers, but it was a shot that it took him forever to get, and it was never a guaranteed thing, and quite often you'll bounce those. And it basically is just an advantage. If you can delay taking fire from the enemy team, it's as good as a win. You can see there the side turret, very difficult, but you'll note here, we put one into that IS, and then we just ram him. We don't wait for a reload and use a reload to kill him. We don't want to waste the shell because there's a T-150 on our left. We're going to kill him with a ram and then immediately turn to the left and put the shell into the T-150, which is far more effective and far more useful in terms of team play. So very straightforward game, but it bears repeating. Look at the mini-map and look at the teams. If you are the only tier 8 on your team and there's only one other tier 8 in that team, this is the kind of tank that can really, really take advantage of a matchup like that, because its armor profile is so savage and severe that for the most part the other enemy team members won't be able to penetrate it from advantageous angles. And you can see their 0.38 dispersion lets you make a shot like that. You'd never make that on the KV4. So battle's over. Again, solid damage numbers. It's not a tank, apart from one notable example, which you'll see at the end. You can see there are a few. That's generally how it looks running KV4s and T150s and things. Lots and lots of wins. Now here we are on the temple. This isn't a bad area for this tank. It's a tier 9 match, but there's plenty of areas here for side scraping. And I'm very adventurous with this tank. If I see an opportunity to get up into a good spot and side scrape, I will absolutely take it. You can see pinging them through the columns of the temple. There's an E75 there and an Object 704 on our left, but it's a tank that can certainly punch above its weight. And even though it's not a tier 9 tank, when the loading screen comes up and I see a KV4 on the opposition, if they're any good, I know they're going to be every bit as good as a top tier tank, even in a tier 9 game. It's such a good tank. Pushing in a tier 9 game, the rest of the team was obviously very helpful there, but we were soaking up shots from an E75, Object 704, IS-3, all good tanks in their own right, and all with guns to match. But your tank is just so effective when you angle it, that if you're not angling it, you're really doing yourself a disservice. 0.38 dispersion is good enough if you give it time. Now your load time, your aim time is 3.4 seconds, which as usual isn't perfect for a Russian tank, but it's something you learn to live with in this line. They've all got high reloads. The IS-4 is going to be dropped, I believe, the IS-7 is getting dropped in the next patch, and the KV4 is going to have a slight decrease in its accuracy while moving and turret rotating, and that's fair enough, because I think it is an overpowered tank, and it really carries all before it if you use it properly. Now that's in public games. In clan matches, I can imagine it will be a different case because its complete lack of mobility can be exploited. Here we are on Fort Despair. Now you'll note here, I believe this is the this is the match. A lot of side scraping here. There's a couple of tanks here which should give us problems. Realistically, they've got decent guns, they're good tanks, but there's just, you can see me just going up and down this wall, and this poor guy has no chance whatsoever. The only reason that one didn't go in was the tiger one shoved his bum in the picture at the last minute on the angle and took it. It also shows something that's a bit weird. There's a couple of shots here into this Conqueror that were a tank down here. Here we go. That did damage. We've taken one damaging shot so far, bounced a lot. Now you'll note, see that lower glacis? Straight in. Did nothing. Did absolutely nothing. Went through, did no damage. I've got no idea either. So I load up APCR for the next one to make sure, and there you go. Then we're going to roll forward ever so slightly, bringing justice to the world. Into the Centurion. Turning, turning, turning. Christmas is coming. So's my turn. There was a quick fall from grace there for the opposition force, but you can see that spot there on Fort Despair. If you can get there, you've got to be careful, because if you get there without the support of your team, you will find that you can be very, very easily flanked on the right-hand side. But if you're able to get up there and they give it to you, go for it. Take it. It's a brilliant spot. Really does wonders for the confidence when you can get the nose shoved into a pile of dirt like that and just side scrape to your heart's content. Angling and dangling, they call it. And there we go. We get our second kill. Alpha Wood in the Churchill 7. Yeah, so 3k damage, 17 hits received. Here we are on Fort Despair. Here's me going to the cap circle. Now that's a shot that's very hard to resist. There we go. But then we mosey right along. You can't get caught up sniping here. Maybe one more. Can you see anything? You can. There's a request for help and we're rolling. So we've taken 2 shots at the snipe because they're absolute gimmies, and we've moved forward. Now we're at 48 in the cap. If I hadn't have taken those shots, probably would have got here in time to save. This cap might have been an easier game, but as it wasn't to be. T44 does a good job though. Lots of pressure there from the cap circle. I'm always a fan of that. We're chasing around, helping out in this IS3, and we're going to get in front of the T44, hopefully here. I think that's my mindset, and actually shield him from any damage, but he goes out on his own anyway. And you'll see there, we hit the enemy, and we did damage. We took damage off his health bar, but it never appeared above his head. And I've had that happen to me a fair bit since the last patch. You see that you've actually done damage to the enemy, but the numbers don't appear above. Anyway, so we're now back up in the cap circle area, and it's all gone to hell in a handbasket. The guys over there in the bridge, they were in strife, but they're not now. We're capping again. Let the pressure commence. I'm going to get one just in the tail of that tiger. Big targets, the tiger. I'm going to try and help this T44 out, just a touch. So we've rolled out. Now there's a reason for that. I've been in this situation lots of times before where the cap circle is not far enough advanced to actually make a difference. And I would rather make sure that I've got the T44 with me to help out than dead and be facing 3 or 4 of them at a time in the cap circle. Now that ISU 152, always a very big worry. Very robust tank this. 0.38 dispersion means you can actually do a little bit of damage. That T34 coming down, nailed him. So only the 2 left. We've got the Tiger 2 and the ISU 152, and I'm feeling pretty confident right now. Until I cop one from the ISU 152, because bloody hell those things hit like a sledgehammer. And now I'm starting to wonder just a little bit. I'm more worried about the ISU than I am about the Tiger, but I'm going to let Camo reset and then stop dead. He thinks I'm pulling back. He can't see me. So we're going to push forward. and hopefully get him as he's coming up and still have a side scraping position straight in front of me on the ISU. And there you go, we guessed right. His camo is blown, he's moving forward, there he goes. Now we're moving forward. See that hill in front of us? See the angle? I'm backing out slowly. He was exactly where I thought he'd be. He bounces his shot, and the chase is on. Such a strong bloody tank. So tough to pen when you can keep targets in front of you. Just so tough to pen. Anytime they're in front of you, you've got to feel good about your chances. So there you go, 5 kills, nearly 4k damage. Here we are on Copperfield. What a game this turned out to be. This is my standard position here. You can see that VK has absolutely manned up and decided he is going to charge everyone, even though he's a tier 6 and a tier 8 game, or whatever. Now, this is a great spot. You are side scraping off this wall. You can get in trouble from straight ahead if they've got enough penetration to hit your lower glacis, but it is a tough shot. There is generally a wood pile in front of you here, and the actual bush itself obscures your lower glacis, so it doesn't let them see what kind of angle it's at and whether it's a clean hit. Now, there are 2 tier 8 tanks on the enemy side. There is an IS-6, an IS-3 rather, and a T-34. I'm looking around trying to figure out where they are because I know they can both pen me given the right set of circumstances, especially the T-34. I'm telling the VK no. Get back. Not listening. There he goes. So, I do this all the time. People make mistakes and I try to save them. I'm pushing forward because I know if I don't, that VK's dead. Doesn't matter. He's gone anyway. He died, regardless. And that was a VK plat, by the way. 2 VK. Unbelievable. You can see this guy has absolutely nothing going on here. He's looking for pens. Fires a bit of heat, HE, sorry. And gets a bit of love for it, but that's all. Now the VK01P has come back here. I'm just going to let the situation develop. We're a tank up at the moment, and we should be able to just let this happen naturally, apart from the fact that my team seems determined to die. Just check out the cat on my right. Just going out into the middle of nowhere. There's a tiger down there. Get one into him. This VK behind me, again, is determined to go out and be seen. He's a one shot. I'm telling him, no, don't do it. Negative. No. It's like talking to kids. It's like trying to herd cats. Just get behind me, you gumnut. No, can't be helped. So we're now a tank down. We're just giving tanks away here at the moment. Got to get down there, and I'm going to push really quickly. I've taken that from the Tiger. The VK is now dead because he gave a T-34 a shot. I don't know what he thought he was going to do there. Tiger tracks me. It's 2 on 4. I pull up here just to make sure that the front lower glacis is actually hidden. This is where I really regret this later on. I was mucking around here and should have just zoomed in and taken the easy shots. Every shot I miss here really frustrates me later because now we've got a T-34 and an IS-3 coming at me as well. There's a Hellcat just turned up. That shot should have gone in. All I had to do was go into sniper mode. Anyway. So that's what I'm talking about, the track repair. We didn't have to use our multi-purpose restoration pack there because our track repair is so positive. We bump him just to do a little bit of extra damage. Now we've got the Hellcat coming out. He's pretty mobile. We're already starting to turn. You see that carcass of that tank in front of me, tank behind me? I'm putting my arse into that carcass. Takes away the easiest part of penetration for that Hellcat. And now I'm angling off my butt, if you can imagine it. There you go. He starts moving, fires his shot, so we start angling off the front again. Cut him off. And that's much better play. Taking a tank that's a lot more mobile than me and ruining his little... There we go. So we're now 2-1 down. 3 kills in the kit. IS-3 and a T-34 to go. There's the IS-3 up top. Making sure of the shot. Angling severely for the IS-3. Don't know where the T... Uh-oh, there's the T-34. So I back up. I want to keep the obstacle between me and the T-34 for as long as possible. Here comes the IS. We're now angling back. Nailed him again. And we're turning. Just a little too late though, because that T-34 is now in a position to say g'day, and does so. Hammer the IS-3. Hoping that he will hang back, but he's not silly enough. He moves right up forward. He's not going to give me that option. Bounce another. We're a one shot. It was all too close. Trying to just keep that angle. Now turn back into it, ruin his angle. Yeah, terrible stuff. Turning and then reverse. Ruin his angles, ruin his angles. Can we do it? Just desperation stuff here. Got him, got him. We just need one more. Yeah, you can hear the big exhale there at the end. Pretty tense stuff. Nearly 6,000 damage. 3 points off 6,000 damage. That was the Gold Mastery Badge game for sure. 18 hits received. Just, what a beast of a tank. You've got to think ahead with it. When you're in open field warfare or any time that you've got tanks trying to flank, you have to start your turn and anticipate a lot better than you normally would in most tanks. Your rotation at 17 degrees per second is horrific. So you noted there when I was fighting that Hellcat and the IS-3, I used whatever was around, just tank carcasses, the bit of dirt, the mound, the rubble, to hide my lower glacis or hide my weak point, which at one point for the Hellcat was my arse. So that's the KV4, guys. I can't recommend it highly enough. This entire second tier Russian heavy line, the T150, the KV3, the KV4, the ST1, the IS4, are absolutely bonza. If you're not ripping into them and ripping into other people while using them, then you're doing it absolutely wrong. Get on board the side scrape train, get some love happening, and come and say good day on the battlefield. On Bushka, on Blitz. Have a great day.